I never stopped loving Annie, even when things got weird. After 15 years of marriage, some strange stuff started happening, and I couldn't ignore it. Annie's style and appearance changed a lot when a new boss took over at her office. Surprisingly, our sex life also took a turn for the better. She started initiating intimacy, which was new. More late-night texts and meetings became a regular thing. She had explanations for everything, but my suspicions lingered. I decided not to hear any details from the private investigator until they had a complete file. I hoped it was just me being paranoid. After 3 months of investigation, I got a folder with news I didn't want. Videos, audio recordings, and photos confirmed my fears. I told my attorney, Mac, to prepare divorce papers. I planned a surprise for their date, even though Annie should have known me better. I'm intuitive, strong-willed, and relentless, as she witnessed when I took over a company. Now, I'm a big shot in the transportation business, respected by truckers. I've always treated Annie like a queen, giving her everything. She tells everyone how wonderful I am, but now I'm left wondering why she risked everything for an affair with her boss. It's the most troubling question. Annie, a fantastic mom and wife, worked full-time as an executive assistant. She managed our home and had a satisfying sex life, or so I thought. I never imagined she'd have an affair. I'm Luciano Rossetti, Annie's husband for 15 years, with 2 daughters who still adore their daddy. I'm the kind of guy you'd call an alpha male, not taking nonsense from anyone but treating my wife like the special prize she is. In our relationship, I let her take charge and feel powerful, to a certain extent. Thanks to my dad's genes, I've got his physical traits: 2 meters tall, 120 kilograms of muscle, an imposing figure. Despite my appearance, I'm a gentle giant unless someone pushes me too far. Annie has witnessed this a few times when guys hit on her. She's a stunning woman, with big breasts, long legs, a thin waist, and an angelic face. Guys can't help but stare and flirt, making my sneaky, jealous side kick in. Over the years, I've learned to control my anger, but jealousy is a lingering flaw. Annie has seen my jealous outbursts twice in the last 15 years, and she knows what I'm capable of. There were instances when guys tried to take her to dance, after she already told them she was with me. Ignoring her refusal, they dragged her out of the booth. Big mistake. The first time, I dislocated a guy's shoulder and left with Annie. The second time, another guy ended up with a broken wrist and a concussion. Now, as I prepare for date night, I can't shake the question of why Annie would risk our relationship for an affair. I made arrangements, got there early, and made sure they were seated in a private spot. Annie thought I was out of town, but thanks to a PI agency's software on her phone, I knew about her plans. The app allowed me to receive copies of her messages and emails, and even record audio. I overheard her telling her boss she was free Thursday night, and he eagerly planned their meeting. It's baffling, considering she knows who I am. The unfolding situation leaves me questioning her actions. My anger boiled over as I read about how my soon-to-be ex-wife was acting. How could this guy pick her up at my own house? My plan was simple: let them settle in, then surprise them. I'd start talking, drop a threat, and serve unexpected divorce papers. My anger and desire for payback grew. I knew deep down that Annie didn't really want a divorce, considering her love for me and the kids. What I was about to do would shatter her, but I didn't care. I just wanted her to feel a fraction of the pain she caused me. Some might say I should be lenient for the kids' sake in our 15-year marriage, but no way. I couldn't let some other man have my wife and keep her as his partner. As much as I loved her, I couldn't look at or touch her the same way again. I had eyes and backup on the scene, ready to notify me at any moment. So, on Thursday night, I got word that the couple had settled in. I walked into the restaurant, smiled at the hostess, and, holding my anger, proceeded with my plan. A couple in love sat at their table, and my heart sank when I saw my beautiful wife in a sexy dress. Something she never did for me. It disgusted me. Why would she do that? It didn't make sense, and it drove me crazy. She wanted to impress her boyfriend tonight, and it infuriated me. Approaching them unnoticed, I waited until they finally noticed me. Annie's face showed shock, fear, and guilt. Her boyfriend had no clue what was happening, unaware that I was her husband. He just looked annoyed, and that's when it all started. "Hi, Annie. Having a fun date tonight?" I asked with a smile. "Honey, what are you doing here?" "I thought you were out of town," she stammered. My boss Jeremy invited me to dinner to discuss some changes in the organization. Please join us. This is Jeremy, my husband Luciano, she said in a calm and loving voice. She was smooth. I had to give her that. Ignoring her lie about the business dinner, I proposed a toast as my drink arrived. I smiled and said, "Let's drink to an interesting night and a new direction." After the toast, I turned to her boss, Jeremy. I asked him if he knew why Annie and I stayed happily married for 15 years. "Honesty and trust? It's as simple as that," I said with a disarming smile. I already knew a bit about Jeremy from the report. Married for 20 years with 4 kids. He agreed with me on the importance of trust and honesty in marriage. Glad to hear that, I turned to Annie and asked if she felt the same. She confidently affirmed the importance of honesty to our marriage, even though she had just said it was a business dinner. She had no reason to feel guilty. I continued my game, asking how long they had been dating, pretending not to know. Annie was annoyed, trying to pull herself together. She called me out for embarrassing her in front of her boss. Following her lead, Jeremy asserted that it was just a business dinner and he'd never go beyond a professional relationship, especially with a married woman. I tried to look apologetic and said, "I'm sorry. So you've never gone on a date with my wife, and this is just a business dinner?" I questioned, wanting to know the truth. Jeremy assured me that there was nothing going on between them, just a business meeting. Turning to Annie, I asked her if this was true, emphasizing the importance of honesty in determining our future. Annie replied, confirming it was just business meetings and nothing more. She stated she would never be with another man, especially her boss, and urged me to stop acting childish. Pretending to submit, I apologized for feeling a little jealous, explaining how seeing her in a sexy dress with another man bothered me. Jeremy reassured me, sharing that he too would have been unsure how to react if his wife were on a date with a stranger. Wanting to reveal the truth, I signaled someone at the bar who handed me a thick folder. As I laid out pictures on the table, Annie and Jeremy looked at each other in confusion. Before showing the first picture, I spoke to Annie in a quiet, sad voice. I described explicit images and commented on each one, making her realize the gravity of the situation. Annie openly sobbed and begged me to stop. Aware of the attention from other tables, I tried to keep my voice down. In desperation, Annie suggested leaving to explain what happened, insisting it wasn't as it seemed. I looked at her with surprise and asked slowly, "It's not what it looks like? Are you going to keep lying to me a lot? Before you do, both of you should know that I've got hours of videos, audios, messages, emails, and pictures. Annie, watching those videos showed me a side of you I never knew, and it hurts. I've spent a lot of money in the last 3 months to get this info, and it's all real. So, trust me, I understand." Putting away the documents, I explained why I was there and what was going to happen that night. Then I handed Annie the divorce papers and told her, "It's over between us. You and your boyfriend destroyed our marriage and my love for you. You've hurt me like never before, and I'll never be with you again." I made it clear that she needed to sign the papers that night, and my fellow lawyer, a notary public, would notarize her signature. If she didn't sign, I threatened to show explicit content to her parents, friends, and even her kids. I mentioned that I treated her fairly in the divorce, but our daughters would live with me. I didn't want my girls with a cheating person like her. Turning to Jeremy, I advised him to get his girlfriend to sign, or I'd expose everything to his wife and work management. I expressed my reluctance to take such actions, but insisted on convincing Annie to sign the divorce papers. I made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with her. My words hit Annie hard. The idea of losing her daughters was something she couldn't face. Tears streamed down her face, and her boyfriend looked panicked. She begged me to stop and change my mind, using the usual excuses. "It's not what it looks like. Let me explain. I'll make it up to you. It was just a mistake," and so on. "Luciano, I love you, and I don't want this. Please give me another chance," Annie pleaded. Ignoring her plea, I stood up and stated, "I'm going to the men's room, and when I come back, I want the papers signed. If they're not signed, you both won't realize the hell I'll bring into your lives." Leaving Annie in tears and her lover in shock, I knew Jeremy would do everything to get her to sign the papers to save himself. During my absence, Jeremy urgently spoke to Annie, realizing the risk of his wife and co-workers seeing the videotapes. He urged her to sign the papers and then asked me to hold them for a week. He emphasized the need to convince me of her love, promising therapy, and describing it as the least I could do after 15 years of marriage for just one mistake. "I don't want a divorce," Annie screamed. Jeremy assured her that making me wait was the only chance to save the marriage, reminding her of the importance of not losing the girls. When I returned to the table, Annie had a sad face. I asked if she had signed the papers. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Honey, I'll do anything you want, including signing those papers, but please give me a week before you do anything. Please let me go home with you, and give me at least that long. After 15 years, please give me 1 week to be with my girls and talk. Please give me that much." I sat in silence, contemplating her request. Eventually, I gave in, expressing my frustration for what she did. I allowed her to go home, giving her a week before I handed the paperwork to my lawyer. I made it clear she would stay in a guest bedroom, away from my bed. She signed the papers, and I put them in the folder before getting up to leave. Before leaving, I held Annie's hand, but her smile faded as I removed her wedding rings. Putting them in my pocket, I took off the ring I'd worn for 15 years. I casually tossed it into her wine glass. The small satisfaction I felt grew when she started crying again, as I knew she was beginning to understand my pain. Turning to Jeremy, I said, "Well, she's your girlfriend now. Do whatever you want with her. I'm leaving, but remember, you screwed my wife, ruined our marriage, and messed with so many things, including my children's love for their mother. Your actions have consequences, and you'll be hearing from me soon. Understand?" Jeremy nodded quietly, and I left, wondering if I had ruined their plans for the evening. As I was about to go, Annie grabbed my hand and pleaded to go home with me. I pulled my hands away, saying, "I don't want to be seen with a whore. Today you're his. I'll see you after he's done having you tonight or tomorrow. You have 1 week, and you disgust me." Admitting I was a jerk, I didn't care. I believed I kept my jealousy and anger in check, proud of suppressing my built-up rage. I decided to give it a week, curious about what would happen the next morning. Annie came home an hour later, heading straight for the guest room. She understood that a quiet conversation wasn't happening that evening. The next morning in the kitchen, I was still in a vengeful mood. Playing tough, I greeted her with, "Good morning, slut. How's my slut wife doing today?" Annie cringed, looked down at her coffee, and started saying the typical words a cheating wife uses when caught. "Honey, we need to talk." I cut her off, saying there's nothing to talk about. I knew everything she did, how long she'd been doing it, and all the things she said to him about me and our marriage. I saw her do things for him that she never did for me, and I knew he seemed bigger and better. I couldn't believe she was that foolish. I told her that if there's something I don't understand, we can talk, but otherwise I have nothing to say. I admitted that I'm the fool, not her, and I didn't understand why I let this happen. Annie tried to explain, saying she never meant to hurt me and didn't want me to find out. Tears rolled down her face as she said, "You should know I never meant to hurt you." I pointed out that was the problem. She never wanted me to find out. She wanted to keep it a secret, lying and cheating with her lover behind my back. I mentioned that I could forgive infidelity as we all make mistakes, but this wasn't a mistake. She wanted it, and wanted to keep it a secret, lying and hiding the relationship. I told her that I loved her, but as Tina Turner says, what does love have to do with it? My trust was lost, and I questioned if I ever really knew her. I was so disgusted and hurt. I asked Annie how many other men there had been, how many times she went to our bed after being with her lover. It was hard for me to even speak. Despite my emotions, I told her that she could go to a counselor to figure out what she needs, and I would support her. However, I couldn't live with someone who could leave me so easily. Her actions and words revealed her true feelings, and I couldn't imagine living with someone who felt that way about me. I mentioned that there are other women who would be happy to be with me, and she had willingly taken her chance. I allowed her a week with the girls, but she had to explain to them why she was leaving. In our divorce agreement, she had full access to the girls, but they would live with me. I promised to treat her better than she deserved and help maintain her relationship with the girls, but I had 2 questions for her. Why did she risk everything, and was it worth it? The following Monday, I called Jeremy and asked him to meet for lunch on Wednesday. During the meeting, I expressed my upset about him destroying my marriage and nearly getting kicked out. I proposed a plan for him to make amends by covering Annie's rent and car payment for the next 3 years. I made it clear that this was his punishment, and he would set up automatic payments to make amends. I warned him of the consequences if he didn't follow through, including job loss and his wife finding out about his infidelity. I wanted him to realize that actions have consequences, especially when seducing a married woman. Why didn't you pursue single girls instead of breaking up families, Jeremy? That was a really terrible thing to do. Epilogue. I treated Annie well, allowing her to visit the kids and maintaining a strong relationship with them. Although we remained friends, she never earned back my respect or trust. Jeremy continued making payments each month, following through on my warning. Annie couldn't provide satisfactory answers to my questions. Despite counseling, she regretted her actions but couldn't explain why. Now she lives alone without a boyfriend and the love she once had. I could have ruined her completely, but losing her family and my love was revenge enough. Even after counseling, she couldn't explain why it happened. The best explanation she could offer was, "I don't know why. It just happened." She claimed it had nothing to do with me, or our marriage, because she loved me and was happy with our life together. However, she admitted it was something new and exciting that she couldn't resist. I challenged her, asking why she dressed up and did things for him that she never did with me if she was happy. I emphasized that it just happened is not a real answer, especially since she did it repeatedly and dressed to appeal to him. I hope one day she can give me a genuine explanation. For those of us who have been cheated on, the actions of these two couples make it difficult to trust or fully commit to another person again. It's a sad reality, but the destruction caused by infidelity has lasting consequences. Married partners should consider the repercussions of their actions, as the aftermath is more significant and enduring than the fleeting excitement of sexual fulfillment. Open communication with your partner is crucial. Either address each other's needs or end the relationship, as betrayal leaves a painful impact with lasting effects.